that time of year again. Income tax time. That's Bob. He's my accountant. I don't want to have to pay Bob. I don't want to have an accountant, but I do have to because taxes are so complex. I don't know how to fill them out. Most Americans don't. Most people today hire someone else to do their taxes. I just don't know how to do what he does. Mine are probably worse than most because I get income not just from Fox, but from my speeches and my books. So I have to pay Bob, what, several $1,000s a year?
That's nobody's business.
Probably true. But what a waste. Think of what I could do with the money. I could
get 100 massages.
I'd much rather do this than pay for Bob.
I could have this delicious steak dinner 200 times a year. I could buy this cool motorcycle.
I could take this cruise ship all the way from New York to Venice and back. Or better yet, I could do some good for the world. The same money I waste on Bob, I could buy 2 Habitat for Humanity homes overseas. Or I could pay 3 kids' tuition at this Catholic school.
Bob would lose out, but he could find more productive work. Maybe he could build those charity houses. Anything would be better than so many of us spending thousands of dollars on this stuff. So tonight, let's attack the tax system.
And now, the man who shatters conventional wisdom, John Stossel.
Here it is in all its ugliness, the U.S. tax code and its explanations. It's more than 3,000 pages. How did we get to this? Taxes were once simple. Government used to run just on taxes on imports, and also things like liquor and tobacco. But then in 1913, the politicians decided we need more of your money, so we got the income tax. Here's the first 1040. It was pretty simple, just 4 pages with the instructions. Look how little money they took. 1% on incomes between $20,000 and $50,000. Just 1%. Also, anyone making $50,000, that's the equivalent of someone making $1 million today once you adjust for inflation. Those in the top bracket had to pay 6%, but you didn't hit the top bracket until you earned $11 million. But leave the amounts aside for a moment. Look at the change in how complicated the forms are. From those 4 pages, what do we have now? This is the current 1040. If you include the instructions, 176 pages. How did this happen? Well, a new movie out this week tells the story. It's called An Inconvenient Tax.
During World War I, the top tax rate moves from 7% to 77%. And suddenly, taxes become a huge concern of a lot of people. People came to Congress. The first deduction, the first one that was really focused on the tax laws, was the charitable deduction. And that's because presidents of universities and colleges came to Congress and said, look, we're not getting contributions. You're taking 77% of the top dollars of rich people. So Congress said, well, we'll give you a charitable deduction.
And then people said, we need a lower rate for capital gains, and then a deduction for retirement plans, for children, and so on. Still happening, because everyone wants a break, and politicians love giving us gifts.
Give families a $10,000 tax credit for 4 years of college and increase Pell Grants.
And then the politicians applaud themselves for their generosity. And they campaign by making promises to the favored groups.
I'm going to provide a $4,000 tuition tax credit that helps parents be able to afford the price of tuition so we can go to college.
And that wins them more applause.
And the tax credits bring us more pages in here. Can we bring a camera in closer? I mean, look at this fine print. 3,000 pages of stuff filled with these special exemptions. And partly because of all these exemptions, to get the money they wanted, politicians kept raising the basic tax rate. By the 1940s and 50s, the top rate was 90%. That changed, as the movie explains, thanks to JFK.
first president of the modern era to embrace the issue of the income tax was John F. Kennedy.
He was the first president to realize that high tax levels stifle economic growth, and so he proposed
top-to-bottom cut in both corporate and personal income taxes.
His tax advisors came along and said, but these high rates retard economic growth. And that began the real conversation about the relationship between tax rates and economic outcome.
He'd actually gone in and slashed the World War II and Korean War tax rates, the marginal rates across the board. He took the top rate down from 91% to 70%, and the bottom rate down from 20 to 14. And we had several good years of growth after the Kennedy tax cuts.
The movie gives much more history. These documentary filmmakers made it, Vincent Vittorio and Chris Marshall. So why'd you do a movie on taxes? Taxes are boring.
Well, John, it's the one issue that every American's connected to, and I think that we wanted to take an approach in which it didn't have a partisanship, and we were able to kind of explore more of the complexities of the tax code and give people a better understanding of why those complexities exist.
And you interviewed lots of people on all sides, and what was the main conclusion?
Well, one thing that virtually everybody who we interviewed agreed upon is that the tax code is way too complicated, and it doesn't do a lot of things that naturally would take place in our economy, people making decisions in their normal lives. Instead, they have to factor in the tax code in their lives. So
and that takes time and changes our behavior, wastes creative energy. I mean, the president who had some success in simplifying it was Ronald Reagan. After JFK, he was the next president to reduce taxes. Let's play some more of your movie.
We must go forward with a tax relief package. I shall ask for a 10% reduction across the board in personal income tax rates.
The context for him was the movie industry.
Hey, wouldn't it be something if the president came to see us?
He'd make a certain number of movies, and then anytime he made another movie, he figured that 80 or 90% of the income he was getting from that movie would go to the federal government. So he would stop making movies and go off and ride horses. He just became convinced, based on his personal experience, that a high tax rate discourages people from working hard and going the extra mile to be productive.